Hey guys, Daryl Cappon here from Wildmen Life, wildmenlife.com, where we help men become bold, wild, confident, and free. We are finally here. This is the video we've been waiting for. As you know, this has been a three-part video series. The first video, I talked about how to pray with your wife. The second video, I talked about how to clear the bridge to freedom in becoming the spiritual leader of your homes. Now, today, we finally get to the meat of the subject, and that is actually how to hear from God. Before I do that, I want to go back and clarify the first video title, which was How to Hear from God and Not Your Wife. Of course, it's important for us to listen to our wives, to seek to understand what their needs are, to seek to listen to them, to find out what we can do to help support them. It's really important. God has put us with our wives as partners in this relationship. But what I was trying to strive for is that a lot of us men have decided to just relinquish our responsibility as the spiritual head of the home, let our wives hear from God, and then we hear from our wife. That's not what God's purpose and plan was. God's purpose and plan is for us to walk in partnership with our wives, but to be the spiritual head of the home. I actually had my pastor say this week, he says he really believes that women are the spiritual depth of a church, but the men are the strength of the church. And that's the same thing in marriage, that God has designed us to listen to our wives, but to hear from God ourselves and to be the spiritual leader of our home so that we can lead our homes together. Let's get to how to hear from God. Now, my wife and I learned this about a year and a half ago, I believe, from my sister-in-law, who had heard a prophetic minister that came in to their church and talked to them about how you can daily hear from God. And this is a four-step process that is so simple. Sometimes we take trying to hear from God and make it into this really big, extravagant, hard, difficult thing like, reading the Bible all the way through, which I'm not saying is bad, but just reading the Bible and then setting and trying to figure out, what God is saying through that scripture we're reading. I want you to follow this, and I'm going to do it along with you. I'm going to show you one of the first times that I actually sat down and did this exercise with my wife, how to hear from God. So here's step one. You got to stop and be quiet. You got to just sit and wait and listen for God. Now, here's what God speaks to me through, which is interesting. He speaks to me through stories in the Bible. My wife gets scripture passages, like she'll look for a specific chapter, in a book, a specific verse, and ask the Lord to lead her to that. The Lord uses stories with me, and that's probably just because by nature I'm a storyteller, so I'm drawn to stories. So the first thing I did is I sat down, I just said, Lord, just show me a story in the Bible that you would like to have me go to today. Now you got to set and you got to wait, okay? Now you don't have to do this right now. I'm going to have you do it afterwards, but let's just say we're waiting right now. We're just going to pause and we're going to wait. Okay, here's what God gave me. The Lord gave me this story about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead in John chapter 11. You can go look it up if you want. Go read the whole story of John chapter 11. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. A lot of us know the story, how he came out and he said, Lazarus, come forth. There's been songs written about it. Anyway, so he told me to go to that story. So I went and read John chapter 11. I read through the story. So now here's what I do is as I'm reading through this story, I ask the Lord to show me the specific verse or passage of scripture that he wants me to, that jumps out at me or stands out, something that I feel like, okay, I need to stop and think about this a minute. Sometimes you don't even know why, but the Lord stopped me on verses 41 to 44. I'm not going to read them, but verse 44 says, he calls to the servants and he tells them, come up and unbind him from his grave clothes and take off his grave clothes. Unbind him and let him go. And loose him and let him go. Different translations. But anyway, it was all about that unbinding him and letting him go. So I asked the Lord, okay, so where am I in this story? First I thought maybe I was Lazarus. But then the Lord, as I waited a minute, the Lord said, you're the servant. You in the story, you are the servant that come up to take off his grave clothes. So I said, okay, so if I'm the servant taking off his grave clothes, what does that mean? How does that apply to me? So I waited. And I need to step back. Okay, I use a journal, and I have an ink pen and a journal, and I write all this stuff down. That's just so important, and I forgot to mention that to you. If you're going to do this, you need to have a journal. You need to write all these down, because if you're going to take the time to listen to God and hear what he has to say, you want to write it down, because the enemy will do everything he can to try to get you to forget what the Lord told you. I've actually had things where I've written them down, and I thought, what was the word yesterday? And I'd go back and read that word. So get your journal. I've written down, I wrote down the 3 verses of 41 to 44, and I highlighted, unbind him and let him go. So the Lord told me, so I said, where am I in this story? Now, a lot of times if I'm going to get a word from the Lord and the Lord's going to reveal something to me, I just take my ink pen and I just put it on the paper and I just say, Lord, show me what you want me to learn from this. And so as I'm writing it down, the Lord basically told me, he says, I have called you to release men from their grave clothes and set them free. There are so many men in this world that know me, they have a relationship with me, but they're bound by condemnation in their life or bound by mistakes that they have made in their life, and it's keeping them from being fully effective for me and also fully understanding how much I love them. So what I've called you to is to release these men from their grave clothes and set them free. So, a lot of people call it baggage. A lot of people call it condemnation. That's what I'm referring it to here. This is actually the passage that the Lord used to inspire me to start Wildmen Life. That Wildmen Life was actually designed from Acts 11:44, unbind them and set them free. And so I wrote that down. I wrote that down in my journal. The 4th step then, after you write that down, is just say, how can I apply this? So how did I apply it? I applied it by starting Wildmen Life, by putting my story on there, putting my testimony, putting resources on there. Several men that I've talked to over my past life, I've given them scripture verses from Romans 8. I've given them messages from Joseph Prince. I've given them all kinds of information. So the Lord had me take all of that and put that on a website so I could send men that are in need to be unbound and set free from their grave clothes, a place where anything and everything that they want to know on how to be set free and to become bold, wild, confident, and free, as I said at the beginning of this video, is all right there in wildmenlife.com. So that was my application. That's it. You just sit and listen to God. Verse, story, you say, where am I in this, what passage you want me to stand out? Where am I in the story? And what are you saying to me? Write it all down in your journal. Make sure you got a notebook, piece of paper, whatever. You got to write these down, guys. I'm telling you, it's extremely important. Now, what's really fun about this is we've been doing this about over a year now, a year and a half. Donna and I do it together. And I would just totally encourage you to do this together with your wife. After you've learned how to pray with her, after you've been set free from all the condemnation that you felt about making mistakes in your past, and you've set free to be the spiritual leader, I would just totally encourage you to sit down and do this. Now, what's really fun is that sometimes when you're sitting down and you're reading what the Lord has taken you to, it's really easy to get frustrated because maybe the word that comes to you doesn't come right away. Like the last part where you sit down and you put your ink pen on the notebook and you just sit there and you think, I don't have any idea what God is telling me in this. And you wait and you wait and you wait. Don't get frustrated, because you know what I've learned? Sometimes the Lord gives me a verse or a passage of scripture he takes me to, but he doesn't tell me until like that night when I'm sleeping, or the next day all of a sudden he'll reveal it to me. You know what I've realized? God just wants to hang out with us. He just loves that we're just taking the time to sit and hang out. And that is what is really important to him. He just loves us taking the time to hang out with him. So sometimes he's not in a real hurry, just to give us the word so that we can go on about our day. It's kind of like this, guys. When your kids were little and you're sitting in the living room and all of a sudden one of your little kids just comes running up, jumps in underneath your arm and just snuggles up to you, doesn't say a word, just wants to sit and be with you. You remember how your heart felt? So full because they just wanted to be with you. Then there's other times, sometimes when they get older, they run in, Dad, where's the keys to the key? Where's the keys to the car? They're on the dresser. Away they go. So they're just coming to ask for something and leaving. And how your heart feels like, oh man, I wish we were back to those days where all they wanted to do was just come and sit with me. I think God feels that way. I just think we get so busy in our daily lives that we forget God just likes hanging out. And I just think it's really important for us to just take this time and not be in a hurry. All right? Now, let me tell you something that's really funny. I found out that God likes to make us laugh. Okay, so one day I said, Lord, I need to know where you want me to go. What story do you want me to go to? So he says, I want you to go read about Balaam and his donkey. So I said, okay. So I go read Balaam and his donkey, the story about the donkey where the donkey spoke to him, ran into the wall because he saw the angel. I don't know if you remember that. You got to go look it up. I don't remember the passage, but you can look it up. So it's Balaam and his donkey. So I said, okay, who am I in the story? Guess what? Jesus called me an ass. But he did it in a good way. I started laughing. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm the donkey in this story. But here's what God told me. When I started writing down, he said, I'm taking you places where you're going to see things that will protect the men that you're working with before they see it. And that's okay, because I am using you as a tool for protection and guidance for them. They may not understand. They may even get upset with you. They may even try to beat you with a stick, just like Balaam did with his donkey. But don't get discouraged, because I have given you opportunities to learn things and to see things, even in the future, that will protect men in their lives and in their walk with the Lord and in their families. So I didn't mind Jesus calling me an ass. If that's where he wants to take me, that's totally fine. But it did make me laugh, okay? So that's it. That's the story. That's how you do it. Do it with your wives. Do it as often as you can. Now, I like to do it in the morning. If it doesn't work for you, I know some of you guys get up really early in the morning, have to go to work, and it's really hard to sit down and take the time. Maybe you need to do it in the evening before you go to bed. I personally like to do it in the mornings because I feel like it equips me for the day. And I just love the fact that I have a verse for today, just like I did this morning. The Lord gave me a verse from Acts chapter 13 that says, I am doing things that you would not believe even if I told you. And I'm seeing this all unfold with all this stuff with the coronavirus and everything that is happening, that the Lord is drawing us back to himself. He's drawing us to be wild and bold, confident and free. And that just equips me for the day to come out here in my barn. You can see what's left of my barn back here. I won't show you all of it, but I'm back out in my barn. I love being outside. I love this barn. This barn was built in 1839, and I just love being out here and just seeing all the history. But God wanted me to come out here and talk to you today to be confident, bold, wild, and free. I'm Daryl Cappon, wildmenlife.com. You know where to find me. Make sure you share this video, like it, and subscribe to my channel, guys, would you? I really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to do a video once a week. So subscribe, like, share, all that stuff's at the bottom of the screen here. Make sure you do that. And I look forward to the next time that I get to talk to you guys. See ya.